Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing you can say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I am indeed a soccer nerd. My name is André Carlisle and I have three other soccer nerds with me. Megan, how are you?
How do you say I'm sad in Italian? Because that's what I am.
I don't know, but I feel like we all need to learn if this is how Ferrari's going to do things this year. Eboni, how are you?
I'm great. How's it hanging over there?
Oh, it's fine. Should I be transparent with the people? We're recording this for the second time. We had technical difficulties, so we're going to try and remember everything we said because the first take was the best take. But, it'll still be good, so we'll have a good time. It'll be fine. Deepti, how are you?
How do you say I'm so happy in Aussie slang? Because my
Oi,
Aussie
oi,
boy,
Oi.
he won the race, and I'm so happy.
He did. The screaming into my helmet was hilarious. I loved when he said that little moment. We'll get into team radios because drivers were extra sassy. I don't know what was happening in China, but there were so many sassy radio calls that we must talk about. So, okay, it was the first sprint weekend of the season. There's only 6 of these. The first one is in China. That's where they were. They're at Chinese Grand Prix at the Shanghai circuit. It was a really interesting weekend. On sprint race weekends, you only get one free practice and then you're off right into competitive racing. So then it's sprint qualifying, then it's the sprint race, then it's Grand Prix qualifying, and then it's the Grand Prix race. So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to try and talk about things from every single session. Maybe not free practice 1, because I don't necessarily think anything super interesting happened there except for nobody trying the hard tire. But beyond that, there was a lot that happened. So I kind of want to run through a couple things from the preview and give some shout outs. One to Donald Wine, one of our co-hosts. He talked about, and Deep to you as well, talked about the extension of the DRS zone on letting into turn 14. That's right after that really long straight. That caught a lot of drivers out. Trying to slow those cars down to make that hairpin was key. And Oscar talked about it when he got pole in the Grand Prix. So there was a lot there. The track was resurfaced, so it was really smooth, a lot smoother than it was in the past. It did have an effect on the tires, though. The tires were really grippy, but that also ate them up a little bit. And the weather also was a factor. It changed a little bit. It was hot. And then for the Grand Prix, it wasn't as hot. And the temperature actually dropped about 10 degrees or maybe even I don't understand Celsius. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm an American, so forgive me. It may have been 10. It may have been 20 degrees. The math doesn't really translate in my head. Deepti, please help me out.
I'm still learning, Andre. I'm maybe 10% better than you are at this point.
That's still better, but yeah. So there was an effect, and again, I know that talking about cars going very fast and drivers who make a lot of money and have a lot of personality in them, the coolest thing to talk about is not the tires, but we might have to do some tire talk. So before we get into all of it, I just want to ask y'all, like, top line weekend, because I have heard some podcasts review this race and say, oh, it wasn't the most exciting. And I'm like, but the whole weekend was exciting. So Eboni, what were your overall thoughts about what went down this past weekend?
Who was saying it wasn't exciting? It was a very interesting. I guess they don't equate interesting to exciting, but I do. It was a very interesting and telling race, and we're only on the second race. Like it was a fun weekend. At least I think, with all the storylines that came out of it, Lewis, Oscar, Racing Bulls, even Red Bulls. Like there was a lot of storylines that happened in 48 hours of racing, competitive racing, and I thought it was a very fun weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was a little bit confused as well because I'm like, this is actually, to be honest, this is kind of like the first real race. Australia had such weird and extreme conditions that you couldn't really tell a ton. Like Haas was absolutely awful in Australia, but ended up with double points. That's interesting. That's exciting. That sets things up to be like, oh, what might they look like in Japan where they're heading next? So I'm with you. Megan, what were your thoughts, even though you are sad?
I think I agree with Ebony that like I found it really interesting, and also what we've been begging for years, were like an actual midfield battle with people passing each other. Like this was a fun track to watch overtakes. There's a pretty great one by like I hate giving him credit, but like Max over Leclerc at the end of the race, that was really exciting. There was a
Yeah.
bunch of rookie battling that was just like super fun. Sassy radios were incredible. If you haven't seen the clip of Ollie Bierman saying ciao as he passes people, like I've never identified with the driver more. And so I had a great time, even with being quite sad by the post race results. I've been a sprint hater in the past where I feel like maybe the sprint takes away from the overall race, but in this case they both were pretty interesting for different reasons, and have got me to continue to tune in a way that's quite interesting. After the weekend, I think if we look, we'll talk about it, but like both constructors and drivers championship are really interesting right now, even just after 2 races. And none of us thought that Haas would score points by the end of the year if there wasn't like a crazy rainstorm or like a tsunami or something. And so the fact that they're already on the board is wild.
I feel like I shouldn't say this because it really outs me as having a terrible prediction, but I do feel like I did one of my outlandish predictions for this season is that we would get a Haas podium similar to the Alpine podium we had in Brazil last year. So I am excited that Haas got double points. They weren't close to a podium, but I'm excited for Haas. But I do agree with you, Megan. Like there are one of the things that I always hear about sprint races, they're basically like a spoiler of the main race. Last year, that's how it was. It was very much like the exact same order, except for I think who third place on the podium was different. But this time there was a big shakeup. Lewis Hamilton won the sprint race, and then the Ferraris, which we'll get to, were ultimately disqualified, but finished fifth and sixth. So that's interesting. Deepti, your thoughts on the whole weekend?
Yeah, I guess, people may say like it's not a conventionally exciting weekend because, like I said, for the sprint race, Hamilton got pole in qualifying and then he won. And then Oscar got pole for regular race qualifying and then he won. So maybe that's why they're like, person in the front, if you only care about the winners, but we don't. We care about the whole spread and the whole grid. And so with all that, and like Megan, you said, the midfield battle is really great. Um, I thought it was really interesting too, the shift from sprint to qualifying. When you saw the sprint qualifying results, most of the rookies outperformed and outqualified their like more veteran counterparts. Whereas in the qualifying for the main race, it flip flopped. So it seemed like, maybe the veteran drivers were able to learn a little bit more over those like 24 hours or less than uh, between sprint qualifying and regular qualifying. And so that's why there was more of a shakeup as well. So yeah, all in all, I thought we learned a lot from this race about different drivers, about the teams and like car setups, and that maybe Ferrari has found a new front wing design that nobody thought would be good, but it's amazing actually.
I am so eager to talk to you about this because I didn't understand what was going on, and we will get to it a little bit later. But I kind of want to talk about the sprint events, so qualifying and the sprint race. So in sprint qualifying, I know a couple of notes you already mentioned. Lewis got pole. Oscar looked good as well in qualifying. Lando kind of bailed out on his lap when he realized that he made a little bit of a mistake and he wasn't going to be able to claim pole. Alex Albon got the Williams in the Q3. That was amazing. Liam Lawson out in Q1 again. Gabriel Bortoleto out-qualified Hulkenberg, as you were talking about in the sprint race. You were able to see some of the rookies out-qualify their more veteran teammates, and that was one of them. And then in the sprint race, Lewis showed everybody how to handle Max behind you into turn one. You cut him off, you get in his way, you make him back off. He'll back off or he's going to run into you. Make him make that choice. And he made the choice to slow down and not make that or have to go the long way around, which Lewis also had covered. So I just thought it was textbook. It was great. And then Lewis just did what Lewis does. He managed his tires, managed the gap behind him, and won the race. Oscar took advantage of Max trying to catch up to Lewis and pass Lewis. Max just cooked his tires. That Red Bull car has some problems, and we'll talk about that too. But that's how that ended up going. Lando, I believe, went eighth. He went wide really early in the race on the first lap and was never able to recover. And then Charles Leclerc couldn't get by George Russell, even though he tried quite hard. But both Racing Bulls finished the race, the sprint race, ahead of Liam Lawson. If you're sensing a theme here, it's because we're going to talk about that
Tasty.
whole thing. Ebony is very excited to talk about this.
I am.
Maybe we should just have that conversation now because it ain't like it got any better for Grand Prix qualifying or the Grand Prix itself.
No, it didn't. It was he was garbage through sprint qualifying and then finished 14th in the sprint. And then for qualifying, he went out in 20th position. And then for the race, the only reason he got up to 12th is because 3 cars were disqualified at the end. So he actually would have finished 15th. It's let's let's acknowledge the fact that that car is garbage. The second car for Red Bull is absolutely terrible. No one has been able to drive it. They clearly have made that car for Max. We understand that, but for this rookie to come in the way he did and just be like arrogant to a point where it's like annoying and like it's not like a healthy arrogance, and then you underperform in every single test they give you, like for racing, you got to look at yourself and be like, what was the point? And we talked about it, like we discussed when they had the conversation with what is their principal's name? I call him dickhead, so I don't know. I never know
Christian
his
Horner.
Christian Horner.
Christian
Thank
Horner.
you. When they were like, you bought out Checo for what? He's like, I don't like Lawson. Like that's been very apparent on like every single episode we've done this season leading up to race day. And it's just there's just something about him that's just like, man, I hope you fail only because you came in too hot and can't back it up.
So 2 things. One, he finished 15th, but we also had a car DNF. So that's 15 out of 19. So that's even worse, actually. It's not 15 out of 20. I mean, it's like only one, but still, like it is worse. I was kind of a Liam supporter. I wasn't like full fledged, but I thought that he deserved a chance. I thought he should have gotten a baby bowl seat. I thought Yuki should have moved up, but I did think he had this contract with Red Bull that said they had to use him by this year. He'd be free, and I thought, okay, Red Bull, you got to do something with him. Before he came into the series, I also thought, oh, this guy has gotten a couple of bad breaks. If you haven't heard our preview pod about the rookies, in DTM, 2 of his opposing not teammates, his rivals kind of ganged up to deny him a championship. And at the time I was like, man, that sucks. In retrospect, what an evidence of bad vibes that like 2 people who are not on the same team ganged up to deny you a championship, and the bad vibes have been proved. It's one thing to come in, like all of these drivers have to have a healthy level of arrogance, I guess, unless you're Lance Stroll, in which case we don't know anything about you. You are a piece of paper. But like all of them have a healthy sense of arrogance, and you see it come out. Sassy radio's one of the key ways, but there's a difference between healthy arrogance and arrogance where it is just clear that you have no understanding of where you stand, and no understanding of kind of the rules of civility. Plus, it doesn't seem like any of the other drivers fuck with him at all. Like, he does not seem to have any allies. Max acknowledges him, but not even really. And just to kind of like break the third wall here, today while we were discussing having to re-record this episode, it actually came out through ESPN, so like a pretty reputable source. They're only going to print rumors when they can get them confirmed by more than one source, that Liam may not even last through Japan, that they may decide to switch him out of Japan. We thought he was going to be thrown out at some point this season, but I don't think any of us thought it was going to be that quick.
I think, I was also kind of giving him not the benefit of the doubt, but like, okay, his personality is one that would fit in this particular Red Bulls team. With Christian there, with Helmet there, with Max there. I was like, okay, maybe this is the type of person they want. Whatever. Clearly that's not gone his way, and it's almost he's kind of on his own now because his own team doesn't like him. Nobody else likes him. He doesn't even have the support of the people around him, it seems like. And I almost just feel bad for him, honestly. But he got what was coming, and he needs, like, yeah, like Ebony, you said, the car was not made for him. The car sucks to drive. Andre, you showed us something about, or told us about what Alex Albon said about the Red Bull's car, number 2 car. And yeah, it's just a bitch to drive, but unfortunately, he himself has not done anything to help his like position there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with Lawson as well because I like when a rookie comes in and wants to shake things up. I like you do need some ultra confidence, some bravado to go. And like the differences between a good driver and a bad driver is like 1 second, which sounds like nothing, but it's everything, right? Like it is so much. And so in order to have that confidence to compete, like I can compete with these guys within, 5 tenths or 4 tenths or 3 tenths or whatever it is, like you have to have that ultra confidence. And I appreciated that. But where he rubbed me the wrong way was his comments about Checo. Like I can do a better job in that car. And it's like, whoa, you don't know that experience yet. So like I understand that you're eager and you're young and hungry and want to show that you can have that spot, but like this is not going to be like the Checo Perez apology hour, but like Checo was a good driver. Then something happened. Now, maybe you want to find out what happened before you go talking shit about Checo because now you're understanding exactly what he was dealing with. And we're seeing that with Liam Lawson. If you look at his onboard camera as he's getting into corners and out of corners, especially going into corners, he's got no idea what that car is going to do. None. He's like really sensitive and turning it, and then he'll turn it and it'll automatically dart. And he's like, whoa, got to correct it because I missed the apex. I can't do that. And so, like, he is struggling through that. And it's just like, I would love to have empathy for you, my guy. But you were talking a whole lot of shit before, and now you're having problems. And I it's unfortunate. The question I want to ask all of y'all, though, here's my problem. To me, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner should have to eat this race after race after race.
Oh yeah.
My concern is that they're going to put Yuki in there, and Yuki has so much dog, he's going to be like, yeah, I got it. And then he's like, that car is a career killer. I don't want Yuki to get in there and all of a sudden start finishing P18. What do y'all think? If they offer it to Yuki, should he take it?
Absolutely not.
Seconded. Absolutely not.
But will he take it? Absolutely he will.
He will
Because he
take it.
knows
Yeah.
this is the only shot he's ever going to have to
Yes.
drive a high quality car. Honda, unfortunately, is not backing him in the same way that they used to. Honda is not really going to have the grid presence anymore. And so, like, these people are all hyper competitive. They have to believe they're the best in the world. I do think Yuki's really good. I think it's a bad idea, but I think he sort of has to do it. If he, for whatever reason, doesn't do it, I think Isaac is going to just have his entire world crushed. And, like, I have nothing but respect for Isaac this weekend. He did a great job, and even more than doing a great job, like emotionally, to come back from everything and the way that people talked about him, because toxic masculinity is awful and alive in F1. And so to see him do so well, I'm like, please don't screw this up, Red Bull. But I know you're going to, because that's what you do. You ruin children.
Red Bull ruins the children.
There's this meme that's like, what happens to a child? I think it's from Powerpuff Girls actually, but it's like, this is what happens when no one loves a child. And then the classic meme is like, let me show you Max Verstappen. But it's not Max Verstappen. It's Helmut Marko and fucking Christian Horner, because they are what happens when children are not loved enough, because then they inflict hurt people, right? I'm like, this is so much therapy babble. So sorry, friends. We don't have advertisements for any therapy company quite yet. But like, this is what happens. The hurt people hurt people. Hit me up, right? I love therapy. I pay a lot of money for it. Let's get some sponsorships. I wish the Red Bull was sponsored by them, to be quite honest. Throw a therapy sponsor on their car and give that whole team some therapy. And that has been your therapy corner with Megan.
Ducks in therapy. This is the Megan experience.
I'm so conflicted because, yes, I want, like, this will be Yuki's chance to drive in a Red Bull, drive with Red Bull. That's what he's been wanting to do. But I actually think the Racing Bull's car is better. Like, the Red Bull is good only for Max, and we know that. And that, like, the way the Racing Bulls have performed in these last 2 races, I think it's a good car. The only problem is their strategy, and we can get to that when we talk about the actual race results. and that's what's going to hurt Yuki. So I'm conflicted. Like, yes, I think he should go to a team that theoretically will be better in terms of strategy and how he can like perform throughout the season, but also it could go very poorly for him in terms of just performance and confidence. Like you said, Alex Albon said, it ruins your confidence if you can't figure out how to drive that car.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Like, I know Yuki, if they ask him, he's gonna jump. Like, that dude is just a ridiculous person. So I think I love him. He's great, but I think this would just be a really bad business decision. He did change management teams over the offseason. So maybe somebody in his management team can be like, hey, maybe not. Maybe we just go through this year and then we'll get you out of the Red Bull system. Because I do think like Honda is coming back with Aston Martin. Aston Martin has hired Adrian Newey. Looks like he's exclusively working on the 2026 car, because this car, apparently every time Fernando Alonso has it, it doesn't finish a race so far this season. Not sure what's going on
And
there.
it allows
But
Lance to score points.
yeah, that has
The
been
wildest part of the weekend.
it really has been. I'm just like, why is this happening to me? Like, all the shit we talked, and now people are gonna be like, y'all are just whack. You don't know. But I'm
Yeah.
like, trust us, he won't continue to do this. We have,
You know what this reminded me
his
of?
movies.
We've joked all season that he just wants to dance, but what this reminded me of is when white girl Julia Stiles hits it in Save the Last Dance, and you're like, there's no way this white girl could move like that, and then she does. And that's what Lance Stroll did. We thought,
Wow.
there's no way this Canadian man, who clearly doesn't want to be here, can put in a good performance. And he quietly, boringly had a good race. And we just,
He
I
had a
don't
good
know how to.
sprint.
Yeah.
It's
He
Yeah.
finished ninth in the sprint.
On no other
But-
podcast will you get Lance Stroll as Julia Stiles. This is what we're here to bring you, and so please enjoy it.
But sorry, we digress.
No, the funny thing was, when y'all were talking about therapy corner, I was really laughing to myself because I couldn't think if it would be like a great idea or a terrible idea for whatever insert therapy company. Because do you really want your like therapy brand associated with all of the dysfunction at Red Bull? Like,
No,
it's not working clearly.
Here's what I think a therapy group needs to do, or the Calm app needs to do. I'm gonna credit Alex Albon's sister with this, because she posted a hilarious Instagram this morning. But she posted a video captioned "Listening to my daily affirmations on the way to work," and it was Alex Albon's radio call where he was like, "Leave me alone. I'm the best on the best on the grid. I've got this. Leave me alone." And I think if Calm app told me every day that I was the best on the grid and to leave me alone, that I wouldn't pick fuck ass white boys anymore to date. I fully believe that if I listened to that, I would make better choices. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take one from Alex Albon's sister Alicia, and we're just gonna believe in ourselves like Alex Albon. Because was he the best person on the grid? Absolutely not. But did he do an incredible job? Yes. And did he give us one of the best radio audios of a while? Yes, he did.
He did. And also, like, the funny thing was that he said it so confidently that his race engineer was just like, okay.
Yes.
Like, I got, all right, you sound like you're in a mood. I'm gonna let you just
Go off, King. That's basically
Right.
what he
What
said.
Yeah.
He led the race for a little bit after that. So you know what?
He led the race for
Go
4
off.
laps. Was it 4
Go
laps?
off.
I love it. It's absolutely incredible. You know what? But I want to talk about Lewis winning in a Ferrari, because yes, it was a sprint race, but it was still an iconic thing. But before we do that, can we just like think of all the sassy radio calls that we experienced this weekend? Because there were so many and they were extremely hilarious. I think I want to start us off with Yuki's, because Yuki's cracked me up. He said, I want to use the front tires more. They said, well, we don't want you to. He said, well, I want to. And then they just said, okay, we'll do whatever you need to do. Like, it was just like everybody had that energy. So what were some others? Because there were so many.
I referenced it earlier, but Ollie Bierman wall passing
Yes.
Liam Lawson, and then he passed, I think, also Fernando. I can't remember, but he said
I think
"Ciao,"
it was
and like
Gasly, wasn't it?
it was Gasly.
It was Gasly, yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. And he, like, very clearly on the Liam one was like, ciao! And it was so funny. And clearly, like, so many people recognized it because in the post race interview, Laura Winter, who is a queen and we love, said as Ollie was walking up, ciao, Ollie. And Ollie got like real sheepish and was like, ciao, Laura. And then she asked about it. And he was like, my head was in the game. And, he's just practicing for when he's a future Ferrari driver someday, I think. So
There it is.
There was a couple good ones. Literally, the Leclerc one where the engineer goes, "Hey, we're losing some time. Can you just change the entire way you've been driving for the last 45 laps?" And he just goes, "Nope," and then just is
Yep.
silent.
Yeah, he was telling him not to use so much curb. So he's just like, "Can you try not using curb?" And Charles just said no, just straight up no.
He was like, "I've been doing this." It was like, "You're telling me it's on lap 45 of 56?" Like, no.
No.
And that was it. That was the end of the call.
end of
Done.
conversation. Cool. Thanks for the feedback. No notes.
There's another. Even I think was it Lando when he was in P2 behind Oscar. Both of them, Oscar and Lando, were told to like push and just basically build the gap between them and George Russell. And so they were like, okay, Lando push. This one was less sassy. It kind of made sense, but the way he delivered it was kind of funny too. He was like, no, I'm not going to go into Oscar's dirty air. And that was it. And they were like, okay. It was like, it seemed like the engineers were not they just, yeah, none of them pushed back at any of the drivers this time, and maybe it was just the tone that all of them were giving the sass, but yeah, everything was just like nope or yep or no, I'm gonna do it my way, that's all.
The other really funny thing that didn't happen on the radio, but it happened after the race when they had them in their little podcast room where they like have the mics, the Big Brother room where like the drivers clearly know we're listening to them. I don't know if you caught it, but Oscar was like, "Let me throw this water bottle at you, or maybe I should throw a hat." Which, if you haven't seen like some Mercedes cuts from the past, Lewis very famously threw a hat at Nico. Rosberg when they were teammates, and Nico like throws it on the ground, and in response Lando said maybe we'll have a multi 21. So like they are just, we'll talk more about it in a minute about Lando's dog or lack of dog, or what the dog ranking is, but it was just hilarious to see two guys like referencing of two very public feuds between drivers, but in such a way that they were saying like we are not feuding, but it was just very cute that they were like, let's pretend we're feuding. And George Russell was just sitting there being like, wow, Charles did a good job, he didn't have a wing, like clearly trying to do whatever the F1 folks wanted them to do, and the other two were wholly uninterested in watching the footage.
Yeah, I always love that cool down room conversation because it's always they act like it does. I love that you said Big Brother because it does feel like that. It's like they want us to feel like we're listening in on something, but like the camera and the big ass microphone are there, like they know it.
Yeah. Um, and speaking of radio calls, it was not necessarily a sassy one, but it was one of Lewis's calls during the main race, which surprised me initially. And what we heard on the broadcast was just Lewis telling his engineer, or rather, his engineer first telling Lewis that the plan was to swap him and Charles at turn 14 of whatever lap that was. And then Lewis just replies with, yes, when he's closer. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why would you make them switch? Like, especially Charles has like a broken front wing. You don't know how it's gonna go. Blah blah blah. And then we find out later that Fred Vassar was like, of course, like the media and the broadcast want to show only half of the message. That's not actually what happened. Like Lewis was the one who initiated it. And it turns out Lewis was the one first who said, I think I'm gonna let Charles go ahead because I'm struggling. And that's where the whole like thing of team orders and allowing them to switch was. So yeah, like team radios are funny, but we only hear just a little bit of it, and it would be fun if there was a way that my brain could process listening to every single driver and all the engineers and all the radio calls.
Yeah.
I think that would be fascinating to actually just hear a whole race But yeah, we have to know that we only do get a small fraction of it.
Yeah, and it's frustrating when they do something like that because like there's enough drama that you don't really need to manufacture it, but I guess maybe Drive to Survive kind of makes them think that like, oh, we need to manufacture some drama to keep some people around or make things seem interesting. And it's like actually you don't. Like let the televised product do that, the drop seasons. Like you're actually in the current like in the present day following a race, like do that. That's dramatic enough because we don't know the result.
And to transition us a little bit, I guess, into talking about the race, they don't need to manufacture stuff because they already have cameramen who are doing the work for them. And by that I mean when Lando is there after coming in second and the cameraman perfectly frames Oscar winning the race in the background, like his face popping up. I have already seen the TikTok girlies at work. They are making some great edits of this footage. Can't wait to see it 11 months from now. It's going to look great in the first episode of Drive to Survive.
I was gonna say, whoever is up for the cinematography award next award season, I need this to be at least a nominee because this was fantastic. Because Lando was basically like glaring at it, almost shaking his head, like he almost like he was directed to do so. It was such a perfect shot. It was so great. Okay, before we do talk about the race, though, Megan, we did have a Ferrari win. It was
It
great
was
to see.
beautiful.
It was
We
Lewis
saw
Hamilton in red winning a race. We've been waiting for this, and we only had to rate one competitive race event.
it was incredible. You could tell how much it meant to him. For those of you who didn't hear, when he um, qualified first on pole, they did this very sweet moment where the race engineer said, "It's San Diego." San Diego was the first place that Lewis got on pole when he was karting. I don't know if there's like a track named San Diego somewhere. And so it was like a very sweet moment, and Lewis does this like very cute little chuckle that is just, it's like a he it's like a child laugh, and like just so nice to see this
It's
man.
adorable. It's too adorable for a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, but also like he had to have the weight of his world on his shoulders at Mercedes, and he had all this racism and terrible shit, and I'm not saying any of that has gone away, but it's just like clear he's enjoying it even with us being sad. I got to sing the Italian anthem once in the weekend. I really wish it would have been twice. I wish I could have been happy after the main race, but I will take a sprint race. It is clear they are on the right path. This car is fast. They have to figure out this tire situation. Who knew that breaking a wing actually helped your car? Question mark.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that in a second.
Megan, I'm so glad you told us the San Diego reference because before you did tell us, I was looking um, on the webs and on Reddit, and everyone was convinced that it was an Anchorman reference. And I really had no idea why those two things were related, other than the fact that Lewis has at one point maybe quoted Anchorman in a interview sometime. Um, but your theory and what they said about his first poll in karting makes way more sense.
He is an elder millennial. Us millennials love Anchorman. It's a foundational part of our humor, for better or worse. So like it wouldn't have been that weird. But yeah, it was just nice to see Lewis and Red doing what we knew Lewis and Red could do. It's great to see a thing André has kind of pointed out throughout our preseason, like how fast will it take him to adapt to a car. He's already doing better than Charles in some ways, which is pretty incredible to watch. And so just awesome to see the GOAT doing GOAT things. Boy, do I wish that had continued.
Yeah, it did not for several reasons, unfortunately, or in several ways, I should say, unfortunately. But I do think Lewis winning was great. The way he managed that race, you can just see, like when he's in those positions, what makes him so difficult to cope with. He just kind of knew everything he had to do, did everything perfectly. He knew his tires would outlast the others. Even when he started talking about graining on his tire, he just knew. And actually, there were a couple instances if you're watching like Lewis's onboard where they're like, "Oh no, Lewis is going wide," and on the turn one. No, he was actually saving his tires. He didn't want to tuck too tight on that turn and put too much pressure on that left outside tire, front outside tire, because he needed to make sure they lasted. And I thought that was actually something that you saw other drivers learn from in the Grand Prix race. So I do think that they kind of looked at what Lewis was doing because he's one of the best drivers ever. Like I always feel dumb when I like compliment Lewis Hamilton because I'm like the dude's have a 7-time world champion. Yeah, he's good at driving, but I like the fact that like it's been so Max dominant the past few years, and everybody might not have the context for why Lewis was so good. And I love any type of moment that you can see it, like Silverstone last year. And then, of course, we have the sprint this year. Like every now and then you get to see it and you're like, oh, yeah, that's what that dude does. So it was great. And now we have to talk about the Grand Prix. And we're going to stick with Ferrari because balance is important in life, they tell me. And so we went from the very high highs of Lewis winning the sprint
What
race.
goes up must come down.
No.
To be
It
fair,
came down hard.
when we ended the race, I wasn't that upset. So for those of you who maybe didn't catch the race, unfortunately, Lewis and Charles came together on the first lap. I think it's a true racing incident. I don't think they really I don't think either of them were at fault. I don't think the engineers could have told them fast enough for it to not. I think Lewis wanted to come back on the line. Charles was all the way hugged over and was starting to move to the left. It unfortunately happened. Messes up Charles's wing. Weirdly makes the car better potentially. So I think there's a lot of people in Italy right now doing some click clacky numbers bullshit to try to figure out what's going on. Because the aerodynamics were aerodynamicing better with a broken wing. But they ended 5 and 6, and it was like, okay, that's not ideal. Obviously, we wish we got on a podium. It didn't look like you had the tires for this. Everybody was kind of fooled out by the fact that they should be on a one stopper. If we had known this before, maybe Ferrari could have made it work a little better. And so whatever, we're fine with 5 and 6. We're still in the hunt. And then what do I spy out of my little eye on Instagram but a disqualification notice for Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and Pierre Gasly. And that's freaking bullshit. Unfortunately, it's not bullshit. Unfortunately, it's true. So what happened for Ferrari is that Charles Leclerc, probably due to the fact that he had the broken wing. Now, it wasn't the broken wing specifically that made this happen, but because of the impact it probably had on the amount of fuel used, Charles' car came underweight at the end. He used up too much fuel. There was nothing they could really do to fix that. They can't refuel the car. So it is what it is. And Lewis, there is a André said it better than I did yesterday, but essentially there's a plank under the car, which is just rather hilarious when you think about these carbon fiber $1 million cars, and then there's just a wooden plank chilling. But there is a wooden plank under there, and it has to be a certain width. And Lewis's was too big by the size of your ID card. So if you pull out your driver's license right now, that's how much it was too big. And multiple
And
commentators.
by the way, I'm sorry. I want to clarify. If you're looking at your ID, turn it sideways. It's
sideways,
it's
like the
thickness
sideways
of
width.
it. Yeah, it's not the card.
It's
It's the thickness of the
thickness
card.
of that card. And multiple commentators were like, this is kind of bullshit, but they did have to make a line, and unfortunately he's just over the line, and no matter where you make the line, somebody's going to be over it. So neither of those are particularly maybe Lewis's is more Ferrari's fault if you can assign fault.
Yes.
But honest to God, neither of them are sincerely Ferrari's fault, which is actually almost more infuriating because it just means it's more bad luck than anything. They didn't clown shoes it up this time. And when they clown shoes it up, it's at least entertaining. Instead, this was just depressing because it was right. So instead of being the second constructor, we're now down to fifth because we just didn't score points. Pierre Gasly was also knocked out, but he was outside of the points anyway. Yeah. So it didn't really change a ton other than having some other drivers look like they had a better weekend than they actually did.
Yeah, this was frustrating, and it does kind of lean into Ferrari being weird. We kind of saw in Australia, old Ferrari. We saw what happened, and in this race, it's hard not to look at it and be like, here's old Ferrari again. Because if it was the same issue on both cars, you're just like, okay, somebody made a miscalculation somewhere. That's unlikely to happen again. Two different situations? That's just weird. And I'm just like, Ferrari, please get it together. We've been banking on you being part of this McLaren, Ferrari. We want to see y'all battle at the top of the constructors and the drivers. We want to see that this year. And it was a bad stretch for Ferrari in the middle of last year that stopped them from being able to win the constructors. That's ultimately how McLaren ended up winning. Yes, Lando and that McLaren took a jump, but without that little spell in the middle, Ferrari would have been right there and probably would have been really difficult to overcome. So it's really frustrating that they're already having issues. They're already dropping lots of points in this race, and it's really frustrating. Deepti, I want to ask you about the rear wing, the front wing thing for Charles, because Charles did say that it was a racing incident. He doesn't think Lewis should have or could have done anything else. He was trying to cover off Max. He did what he was supposed to do. He went to the racing line, and Charles just said it was an unfortunate thing. So there's no beef there or anything like that. But when the part of the wing broke off, the car seemed better. Like we
Yeah.
said, Lewis eventually was like, "Yeah, go ahead and let him pass me," like because he's gonna go and chase and try and get positions. So like, what? What's why? I don't understand.
Um, I am not going to pretend to be a super expert on this, but yes, from what I have understood, um, and there's actually some cool photos of that have like zoomed into the broken wing at different parts of the track, and so on straights and at full speed, the the broken part of the wing is basically scraping the ground. It's almost touching the ground, and if you hear during the race, I think shortly after the wing breaks, Charles's engineer says, "Oh, we've lost 20 to 30 downforce points." And I don't actually know what this metric of points is when it comes to downforce, but less downforce is not good. You want more downforce when you're driving because that allows you for more grip and goes around corners faster. And downforce is just like when air underneath the car kind of is a vacuum and like sucks the car down into the ground. And so I guess when the car is at full speed and when that wing was nearly scraping the ground, it closed off like a gap where air could get out. And so it like let more air stay underneath the car and turn it into more of a vacuum and create more downforce than they were actually expecting, which allowed the car to go faster. What's interesting is when the car turns though and that wing like kind of flaps up a little bit more, that's where they lose some of it. However, I think it was Brandel who said that because this track had mostly right-hand turns and because the damage was on the left side of the car, it didn't affect it as much as they thought they would or as the damage would. So basically when you would make a right-hand turn, um because of the imbalance and because the damage was on the left side, the right tires were able to have more grip and the like right side of the car was able to basically be lower to the ground, which allowed Charles to get more grip on right turns and be faster on those turns. So it did help him, which is fascinating, which is why I'm like what Megan also said, maybe there's a new design for a front wing coming or they're going to try something. But yeah, it's really interesting and lucky, I guess, in a sense that something like that which could potentially have been really bad for Charles was good. And it really surprised me like when at his first pit stop, I thought he would change the wing
Yes.
and they didn't and they were like, "Nah, this is working. No like no point spending 10 extra seconds trying to change something that maybe if it is broke, don't fix it."
Well, unless you're racing bulls, because Sonoda's wing just broke out of nowhere, just
That was
exploded.
wild though. It was literally just because he was following behind and the air and the turbulence and all of it just snapped completely. And that was also a really funny call. He just come into the into the pit and he's just like, but why?
It's a fair question. It is a very fair question.
And
Um,
everyone's just kind of like, I don't know. It was yes.
I think if you can find the replay of his wing breaking, check that out because whenever you hear teams or drivers talk about dirty air, that's the kind of thing they're talking about because these cars are basically we talked about it in one of our earlier episodes. They're basically upside down airplanes. And so there's so much air just circulating. And when it goes through there, the air is doing all sorts of swirling behind cars because of the way that these cars use it. Deepti's looking at me. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly. Maybe you can give it a shot. But basically, just like the dirty air can mess up your aerodynamic platform and how you ideally want the car to move through the air, how you all want it to work. And no, it's not supposed to explode wings. So like Racing Bulls definitely has a problem there that they need to figure out. But it's also like that is like a little bit of visual evidence of what is actually happening behind those cars with the air.
Yeah, it's so basically dirty air is just turbulent air, right? And typically, like we've talked about, Oscar Piastri says clean air is king, and it's because clean air, you can predict and you know how clean air is going to move over a certain surface, whereas turbulent air is so unpredictable. You have no idea how, like, where it's going to go, where the air molecules are going to bounce off, what it's going to do to the aerodynamics. um I don't remember who was in front of Yuki at that point and which car was giving so much turbulent air, but that's still just wild to me that it was so turbulent that it just broke off a piece of the front wing. Um, so either that was already a weak link, or it was just like some sort of, I don't know, perfect like storm in that one section.
Was it Stroll?
I feel like it was, yeah, an Aston Martin, and Alonso retired pretty early, so it might have been.
Yeah.
It was either an Aston Martin or an Alpine because I know he was at one point. Both of them were battling like with Jack Doohan. So like both of them,
Yeah.
like Yuki and and Hydra were battling with Jack Doohan. And Jack, we need to talk about Jack Doohan at some point. In fact, I'm gonna save that. Spoiler alert for Zoomy and Gloomy Boys, which we do need to get to. But before we get to that, I do want to get to who actually won the race. It was Oscar Piastri, and he stuck it on pole. He managed the
Oi,
race
oi,
very
oi.
well.
Oi,
There it
oi,
is.
oi.
And he won it. He went all the way around. Like I think he was only not the leader. What was it when he pitted and Albon
Yeah.
took the lead for those 4 or so laps, and then he was right back in the lead. I thought it was brilliant. I think we're kind of seeing it almost. This is kind of what it seems like McLaren are doing. If you finish ahead of your teammate, you get the preferred strategy, and then whatever happens, happens. Now, would have been very interesting if Lando Norris didn't have that brake issue late in the race to see if he would have tried to battle Oscar for the lead and if there was going to be some radio call to hold position like they told Oscar in Australia. So we are still waiting to see exactly how they're going to handle this quote unquote we have 2 number 1 drivers thing. But Oscar got the win. It was a brilliantly managed drive. I think this is the clean air is king thing, and we also know that Oscar has struggled in the past of maintaining his tires, and he did a great job in this race. So it feels like this was a really, really good and probably a really big confidence boost for him to get pole and see it through to the win. Deepti, you're a big Oscar fan.
Yes.
Let's go.
um, I think that we can already see that Oscar has learned a lot from last season and the drives that he's had, even though it's only been 2. And spite is a powerful thing, and I feel like he will feel the spite from Australia for several races to come. So this will not be his
Yeah.
last win. And you could even tell in his post race interview, like he was like calm and chill, but uh he still, I think he said something about Australia, and he wanted that home win. And so until he gets that, he will have a little bit a chip on his shoulder. But um, I think you're right. I think McLaren has to figure out soon, like who their actual number 1 is going to be. Like right now, they say, yeah, we have 2 number 1s, and like you said, whoever qualifies better is probably going to get the primary strategy and plan A. But how long can they do that for? Like, it can't be too many races because it's just going to hurt them in the long run, or hurt the drivers. For constructors, maybe it will be fine if they're always 1-2, but um, for the drivers, they will have to, at some point soon, probably pick who they're going to prioritize.
And let us talk about the X Dog factor because it's relevant to this discussion. Lando came in second, and in the least dog behavior ever, didn't even seem that mad about it. Like, he got out of the car and he was just like, whatever. He goes to the interview and they're like, hey, you did great on the start, which is like, in parenthetical implied here is like, historically you've done terrible on starts, so like, congrats, you had a good pass. Like, do you think that you would have had the opportunity to win this race, or like, do you think you should have won this race? And he just kind of non-answered it and was just like, well, Oscar did great. And it's like, no. We talked earlier about Liam Lawson having an asshole factor. If it's a spectrum, he is too far on the end. Lando is not enough. Lando is just kind of like content to be a team player, and that a world champion does not make. We have talked about his lack of dog. I will give him props on the sprint. He did have a little bit more dog. Ebony has described him as having the dog level of a goldfish. So if we're gonna upgrade from goldfish, it's gonna go to hamster. In case you're
Oh.
curious, the next level is duck, which I didn't even give you a duck update for China because we all knew there were ducks in China. Let's be so fucking for real. We knew there were ducks in China.
Everybody knows
So
that.
that one I didn't feel the need to wake up at 2 a.m. I'm in London, so I did not feel the need to wake up very early in the morning to tell you that there were ducks in China, because I thought we all knew that one. So yeah, Lando went up to being a hamster, but then I think that post race interview took him right back down to goldfish. Like, buddy, you tried so hard. Maybe he exerted all of his dog powers and then just like had none left to give. It's like Nos in Fast and Furious, you know what I mean? Like, he only had so much and then it was gone.
We have so many charts now to make for this podcast because
We do. I still have to make a Destiny's Child one.
tattoo. Yeah, I was like, we have the Ebony tattoo probability. Probably we have the George jealousy meter. We have the Max snitch something, and now we have the X dog chart.
We've got some work to do. It's okay. We're gonna workshop it one night at 3 a.m. All of a sudden, you're gonna see like 16 graphics out. But I don't even know if he could really be upgraded to hamster, because like whatever he did in the sprint still was kind of like meh. And then, like you said, he bailed out on his last lap for qualifying. And then he's sort of like, before the brake issue, I don't even really know if I could really say he truly fought George. Like, even then, and he still almost lost second place. Like, there was a bigger strategy at play. But even before that, when they were like, hey, keep the gap close, and he was like, I don't want to get behind his dirty air. It's like, well, dude, if you want to like push to like jump ahead of him, you've got to take that risk. He doesn't want to take the risk because he's thinking constructors. And I'm like, but you're the one that said you'll be winning a championship next year. And you have not shown me that X dog yet to actually do it. So you've got 2 weeks to get to Japan, my guy, and I hope that you go to the school of X dog, and hopefully you go up to golden retriever.
Wow, that's a big jump from hamster to golden retriever.
It is. So what is duck is next?
Yeah, duck's next level.
Duck and then goose.
Yeah.
So I want you at goose by the
Oh.
time we get to Japan.
Fair.
And
All
then
right.
if you don't do well in goose, you become a silly goose. And
dear.
we don't want no silly
Now
gooses
we're off.
on the
Yeah,
grid.
we're on a different scale altogether once it gets to silly goose. That's tough. So I read his immediate post-race interview a little bit differently. He almost, to me, it sounded like they were asking him like, hey, would you have wanted to go and like, could you have won this race? And he just kind of, to me, his answer was almost like Belichick back, like we're on to Cincinnati. Like he just didn't really want to say it. Like the subcontext to me, or the subtext, I think that's what I meant to say, was that he could have, but the brake issue, and he didn't want to like outright say no. But what, Ebony, your point though is where I do have the questions again about dog, because he was so panicked about George Russell behind him that he was telling his team to tell Oscar to speed up so that Oscar could help him clear like the dirty air and pull away from George. It's like, just do it. Just do it. Like if you want to go and you've got the pace to do so, do it. I know the dirty air might mess up your tires, but that's part of it. You're behind. You didn't get on pole. You have to take risk if you want to win the race. By the way, he's trying to manage his tires. He's trying to win his race. Like he's got his own strategy. He don't need to be thinking about you. So like that whole thing was a little bit annoying, which is kind of where I get annoyed at Lando, because ultimately he just seems very annoying. He's like, every time he's interviewed, he'll be like, oh, it's not as easy as it looks. And it's like, nobody thought it was easy, my guy. Like, why are you so defensive and abrasive sometimes? So that aspect to me is a little bit annoying. And honestly, to me, it reads as defensive, which I think is where I question the dog.
Fair enough.
All right. Should we take a break and then do our Zoomy and Gloomy boys?
An accountability corner.
Well, Deepti asked for it. So here it is.
It's just funny.
Should I start with yours?
Go on.
So we give predictions, and usually it's just whoever's on the preview pod gives a prediction. So we don't have predictions for everybody. I might try to come up with a way where we can get everybody's predictions, but we're all kind of various levels of busy. Whatever, we'll figure it out. Deepti had Lando winning the race, Max second, Carlos Sainz third. Explain
I want to
yourself.
talk about that. Like,
Well, you see, the Williams car actually seems pretty decent, and they were very
Agreed.
strong in both of you just the nodding.
I'm just trying to see third place decent. Like,
Okay, you know what? They had strong testing. They were pretty strong last week. And Alex Albon led the race in a Williams car.
He
For
did.
5 whole laps.
he did. You know what? I can't even
That is
fault you because
5
you know
more
what?
laps
Alpine didn't
than
do it.
so many of the other
Yeah.
people.
I have
So,
to let you behind the curtain for a second. I am currently in London for soccer things, and so Deepti and I got to watch this race together, delayed because neither of us were waking up early for it. And when Carlos got out, or like clearly wasn't doing anything, Deepti goes, "Well, I predicted wrong," just like out of nowhere. And like ultimately Carlos, like props to him, he did get some points. Like Williams is doing well, but he just had to
He
be
got
helped by
a
4
point,
people being
right?
knocked out. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think he got
Hey,
a
a point is a point.
But you know what?
point.
You can't blame Carlos. We know Carlos is a good driver. Something's wrong with the balance of his car. Like his seat moves when he's driving, and with all the other things that they have to deal with, that's not something they want. It's the seat moving. So it's only week 2. Like they have 2 weeks now to get to Japan, and hopefully they can fix some of the issues, and it'll just take a little bit. And then I think a Williams podium is coming. I stand by
I was
it.
gonna say, are you already previewing your Japan preview prediction? Because
Um,
another Williams
I might
podium would be
push
awfully
it off
bold.
a little bit more, but yeah,
Give him some time.
give
It's a
it
good
some
idea.
time, but it'll be back.
All right, sounds good. Listen, if you would have been right, it would have been amazing. To be honest, none of us had George Russell on the podium, and he's the only other driver besides Lando Norris to stand on the podium in every single race this year. Now, it's only 2, but still, it's a Mercedes, and we didn't necessarily think that was going to be happening. We really thought it was going to be McLaren and Ferrari, which we'll kind of get to later. Kyle had Lando, Charles, Max. That was his podium. So not super wrong. Just, one of 3. Okay. Donald had Max winning. I don't know why he did that. Lando and then Charles. So a lot of faith in Charles Leclerc. I had faith in Charles Leclerc as well. I had Oscar winning, which I got to pat myself on the back for that. But I had Charles second, and I had Lando third. So if I would have remembered that George Russell existed, maybe I would have had him somewhere on the podium and would have been a little bit more right than I was. But at least I had the 2 McLaren drivers, which I feel like I can't pat myself on the back too much, because it is just kind of like they got 2 really good drivers in the best cars on the grid. You expect them to be on the podium most times, so I can't really say much about that. Constructor scrap. 3 of us, Deepti, Kyle, and me, we had McLaren getting the most points. That's what happened. Donald had Ferrari getting the most points. He was wrong for several reasons. Did not work. Least points. Every single one of us on that preview episode said Haas, because Haas looked terrible in Australia, and then they went and got double points. Ciao,
Yes,
indeed.
we apologize.
We do apologize.
We were
I'm
unfamiliar with your
sorry.
game. I am so
Unfamiliar with
sorry.
I was so unfamiliar with the Haas, which is annoying for me because I did predict a Haas podium at some point this year, and at first I was like, well, that prediction just looks incredibly dumb, but I love a weird podium, so we're gonna get at least 1 or 2 weird podiums. There's 24 races.
Why are you making fun
Things
of
are
me for
gonna go
Williams
wrong.
then?
Well, you're talking about just performance. You didn't say anything weird. You're just like, the car looks good. He's gonna be on the podium, and I'm like, okay.
Okay, it's like
The
weird, but
day
with a
we
little
have
bit
a
of
Haas, I want a Haas Alpine Williams podium. I don't care what order, but we're gonna get it, and it's gonna be wild. This whole
I hate to
pod,
give him.
we're gonna have to meet each other up one day and just scream for 15 minutes, and that's the episode.
That will be the most chaotic pod we ever do if that ends up happening. Because unfortunately, not to give him a ton of credit, but Max in a car that isn't really a threat to win every single race, he's actually been somewhat funny this year. So they asked him what it would take for him to win the race, and he said, "Everybody ahead of me retiring." I feel like that's what's going to have to happen if we're going to get a Williams, Haas, and Alpine podium.
Hey,
So
You never
we'll get
know.
there. That's true. I will run through this real quick because we do predict our Zoomy and Gloomy boys, basically who's going to have a good weekend and who's going to have a bad weekend. Then, of course, we do the real ones, which we will do in just a second, where we will deliver our personal Zoomy and Gloomy boys. But we had the predicted ones were Deepti, Fernando Alonso, oof, Zoomy boy, didn't really happen. Kyle, Isaac Hajar, so good. Donald, Charles Leclerc, nope. And I had Yuki, which, barring strategy, would have been good. But
Okay, if you get to do a barring strategy, then Donald gets to do a sorry, my car broke Ferrari. Like, come
Barring-
on.
I'm not saying I'm
Fuel.
counting mine as a positive, a right prediction, but I'm just saying the strategy was more of the problem than Yuki. Gloomy boy, Deepti said Liam Lawson. You were correct.
yes.
Kyle said George Russell. He was not. Donald said Esteban Ocon. He also was not correct. And I said Jack Doohan, which we'll get to. Let's get to Zoomy and Gloomy boys. Ebony, your Zoomy and Gloomy boys from the weekend.
Oh man, so there were so many good options for both Zoomy
Yeah.
and Gloomy. I went with Kimmy. Kimmy has been like just head down, having fun, learning, and putting that Mercedes in like good point positions for he for both the sprint and for the actual race. Like he's out of all of the rookies, he's killing it. And he had a really solid weekend again. Like he had a good one in Australia, but this one was I have no complaints for him. Like, yeah, Kimmy was my Zoomy boy.
He was 7th in the sprint and 6th in the Grand Prix.
Yep.
So very, very good. And apparently in the Grand Prix, they told him he had underfloor damage, which he didn't even know, and still dragged that car into 6th place, which I thought was phenomenal. I love Kimmy because he's basically like when he sits, his brain does one thing. I'm in car go fast. That's it. It's all he does. And it's just like he does everything to the extreme. And I'm like, this dude is ridiculous. I love watching his onboard camera. That dude throws the cars in the corners.
And then you want me to do my Gloomy boy? Gloomy
Yeah, let's
boy.
do it.
There was also a lot of good options for this one. Could go Ferrari. Could go Lawson. That's always a solid choice. Could also go Doohan. Just not having fun. He's not. And if the rumors are true about his six race contract, we could have a new driver by the time we get to Miami.
Or before, who knows?
Or before, true. Oh yeah.
He's your Gloomy boy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Doohan just because
Yeah.
if I'm gonna rock with my Alpines, we got to accept them for the
For
good and the
better or
bad.
for worse.
It's been
a lot of worse
right now.
So much worse. Not even Pierre Gasly can work with that thing at the moment, and that's
No.
unfortunate. Megan, your Zoomy and Gloomy boy of the weekend.
Listen, Ollie Bierman is a sentient little teddy bear who also has a little bit of dog. And I think it's so fun. We thought Haas was going to be so bad. And he is out here saying, Ferrari, put me in your plans for the future, baby. I understand you got two good guys right now, but eventually Lewis, unfortunately, is going to retire. And I think Ollie is showing in what we think is kind of a shitty car that he deserves it. And so that has been really great. On the flip side, I'm going to take the easiest orange off the tree. Liam Lawson, buddy, what you doing? It's not going great. You're just chilling back there. He spent a good majority of the race chilling in 18th. And the only people behind him was Stake. And like, are they even a real F1 team at this point? We don't even know. They might just be an elaborate like money laundering situation. And
Could
like,
be
I
a
don't
couple
think
teams, to be honest.
yeah, to be fair. when haven't we had a team on the grid that's just a money funneling expedition? And then today, like the hindsight now, because we're recording a day later than we did last time, but like it seems very clear that Red Bull is going to let him go. And whether it happens at Japan or later on, it does not seem like Homie is long for this world. And I can't say that they're wrong for doing that, even though I don't agree with their practice of doing this. Like they are not wrong. They're not incorrect for doing it. It's just that they're not setting anyone else up for success moving forward.
Yeah, that is very, very fair and very, very true. Deepti, your Zoomy and Gloomy boy.
Yes. My Zoomy boy, I'm actually gonna go with Kyle's. I think Kyle nailed it. Isaac Hajar. Um, like Megan had mentioned before, he got a lot of unnecessary shit for possibly potentially crying after spinning out in the formation lap in Australia. And you know what? Men can cry, men can have emotions. Let him do his thing. Fuck you, Helmet Marco. And he bounced back so well this whole weekend, and he like out qualified Yuki in some parts of the sprint qualifying. I think not in Q3, but he got it to Q3 in qualifying as well, and then he finished in points, or he would have finished in points, I think. But yeah, I think just overall Hajar had a good weekend. He has shown that, you know what, he's on Racing Bulls for a reason, and I just wish the best for him. Like I honestly, he was the least intriguing rookie to me just because I didn't really know much about him, but he's growing on me, and the whole Racing Bulls team is growing on me, which I didn't think I would ever say.
Hajar finished 11th after all the
Yes.
DNFs
Okay.
or disqualifications.
I'm a fan of the baby bulls too.
Yeah,
They just got to get the strategy right.
exactly. And that will actually bring me to my gloomy boy. I initially was going to go with my Zoomy prediction, Alonso, because that was also sad that he made it like 4 laps. But I'm going to go with Yuki for gloomy boy because it's not necessarily his fault, but the strategy, he ended up pitting 3 times. I think they had him on a 2-stop strategy anyway. And then because of the damage, he had
Yep.
to go third. And if you look at the actual race results or watch it, most of the drivers only had a one-stop strategy, and they like realized that the hard tires lasted a lot longer than they initially expected, and so they were able to like just use that for most of the race. And Baby Bulls somehow didn't get the memo, or chose not to like use the live data. And unfortunately, the extra stop would have hurt him anyway. So, yeah, one of the Baby Bulls is Zoomy, one of them is my gloomy boy.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate because as we mentioned, Yuki's wing exploded, but they'd already had like baked in they were going to do 2 stops, so they just added a third. And it's annoying because Lance Stroll went damn near 30 laps on his tires, and it's like it became because of the track, like the data that everyone was getting, like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be a one-stop race because you can manage the tires and then you're good. So why Racing Bulls just didn't get that information is so confusing to me because everybody else on the grid, every other team on the grid one stopped unless they really had to, which,
I mean, they did the
Ferrari
same thing with.
did pit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ferrari did pit Lewis Hamilton because they wanted him to get on fresher tires to try and chase down Max. But again, Ferrari'd and disqualified anyway. So
That made no sense because they didn't even put him on mediums. They put him on another
yeah, they
set
put
of
him on hards
hard
again.
tires, which takes a while. He was already on those and he was doing fine on them. It made no sense. I was just so
Yeah.
confused. But
Yeah, you would think you'd want a bigger like offset, so you want to give him like a softer compound to actually go and race and maybe a little bit quicker because they were saying on broadcast like, yeah, he's like these are fresher tires. He's like 7/10 like a lap quicker, but he needs to be like a second quicker if he's going to make up the time. And maybe on a medium tire he would have been. So yeah, that was a little strange. Again, Ferrari did Ferrari a bit in this one, even though the disqualifications are not entirely maybe their fault, just some miscalculations here or there. Doesn't matter. Looks bad.
I know you mentioned, Andre, that the teams in free practice didn't even test the hard tires, so they didn't have any data about it. I think the reason is probably because in a sprint weekend, teams get only 12 sets of tires rather than 13, which they get 13 for a normal weekend where there's 3 practice sessions and then qualifying in the race. One reason I think is because they want it like tire strategy and management to be more of a factor. And then also because practice sessions probably use more tires than a sprint race actually does. Sprint race typically would use one set per car. Um, and because of that, they only had two sets of hards for the whole weekend. And so I think none of the teams thought they could or should use up one set of those for the practice session. And then they weren't going to use it for qualifying or sprint race. So yeah, that's why we saw hard tires for the first time in the actual race, and that's why people were surprised at how well they lasted on this newly resurfaced track. So that's my thinking and why that happened the way it did. But yeah, it doesn't make sense why the Racing Bulls didn't like adjust their strategy having gotten the live data.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that strategy, like the tires, that's very interesting to be honest. Given like you have one like two fewer practice sessions, that does seem a little interesting that they do that. But I'm also wondering, like, does that mean like Lewis had to go back on hards because he should have had mediums, right? Like you don't. And I know in a sprint you qualify the first two sprint session or sprint qualifying Q1 and Q2 are with medium tires, so maybe he just didn't have any mediums left that were fresh.
That's true. I think you get, I want to say four mediums. But either way, I think you're right. Like maybe he had only used medium tires, which is why they put him on a fresher set of hards instead.
Yeah. Then maybe they shouldn't have pitted him in the first place. But anyway, uh, I'm gonna get to my Zoomy boy. I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna say Zoomy boys because Megan already said Ollie, and I agree. The Chow was great. His overtakes were great. I think some of them were a little overshadowed by the Chow and how funny that was, but they were really good overtakes as well. So very well executed and cleanly executed from him. So I appreciated that. But Esteban Ocon, of course, it took some disqualifications from the both Ferraris, but he finished fifth. So double Haas points, and even without the disqualifications, they still would have had double points. So it was really, really good to see. I thought Haas definitely deserved to be a Zoomy boy, and I'm here for that. Gloomy boy, Ebony, I'm with you. It's Jack doing, and it's Jack doing because, as I keep saying, he's running out of races. He may have already run out of races because in this one, not only did he finish very, very low, which he was 13th, which again, think of all the disqualifications. So that's technically 16th as well. Um, but the thing that is weird about him now is that he's also hurting himself. He had a 10-second penalty for causing a collision in the race, and in the sprint and in the Grand Prix race, he had just weird moments at the end of the race. Where in the sprint race, he just turned everybody backwards, like had it looking like a parking lot out there because of whatever the hell he did, and that was strange. And then the qualify in the Grand Prix, he did something similar. He locked up his tires and basically had Hajar have to go off the track to avoid him. So like there were so many bad moments, and getting that penalty, of course, was also bad. But you couldn't argue the penalty. So like if I know he's under a lot of pressure, but if you're trying to stick around, bad results plus penalties plus crashing on the final lap of races, that's not gonna do it. That's not gonna do it, my guy. So I think he's what, 3 races down. If the rumors are to be believed, only 3 more to go, if that.
Yeah.
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 Franco Colapinto, come on
I've been
down.
practicing how to say his name. It's okay.
All right. Anything else? I think we did go long. I think we went longer in this one than we did on take one, which is makes me very happy because we clearly had a lot that we needed to say and forgot to say. So that's good.
Yes. I just want to say shout out to Ted Kravitz for putting Christian Horner on the spot about
Oh,
in
beautiful.
was it after qualifying? I don't even remember what part of it the weekend it was, but he just asked him straight up. He was like, "You didn't pay off Checo for this, did you? The point was to replace Checo with a quicker driver." And
It was a
Christian
funny
Horner,
question.
I love to see that man squirm, and he was just like, "We'll have a good look at it." And you know what? Keep going, Ted. Keep asking those questions. Keep making him squirm. It's the best thing.
Make bad man feel fear again.
There it
So,
is. There it is. I mean, Christian Horner wants the spotlight all the time anyway. So now that the car is bad and they've made bad decisions, oh, don't shy from the spotlight now. Now take all those hard questions. And Ted, that was just perfect phrasing. He was just like, "You didn't pay all that money for this, did you?" I was just like, damn. It's impressive. Loved it. Here for it. All right. I think that's it. Thank you for bringing that up because I did mean to talk about that. I think we're done. We will be back. Of course, we have a week off before everybody's in Japan for the Japan Grand Prix. I'm really excited. That track is super interesting as well. So I'm excited to preview that one. Really, really looking forward to it. We will do that the week of the race. We'll preview it. We may have another episode dropping later this week. Maybe we'll review Drive to Survive or do something else. We'll see, but we'll have something else for you. But for Megan, for Deepti, and Ebony, I'm Andre. I'm Julia.